I am one of your hosts, Jayla, and I'm so happy to be here today. So, we're going to kick off with our agenda, which is welcome and housekeeping. We'll overview a little bit about the Georgia Recovers campaign. I'll then introduce our speakers for our fireside chat, and then we'll wrap up with a Q&A. So, a few housekeeping rules. The webinar will be recorded and a copy will be available after the webinar has concluded. All attendees will be muted. Please use the Q&A panel on your screen. The chat will be monitored generally, but any questions that you would like to present in the Q&A portion, feel free to use the Q&A chat. The interpreter, Sarita, will remain spotlighted throughout the webinar. To adjust your view and to see all speakers and panelists, click the view in the top right corner of your screen. And feel free to use the string text link to access the live transcription of the webinar. So, a quick overview of the Georgia Recovers campaign. So, Georgia Recovers is an evidence-based public health campaign that's aimed to reduce the prejudice and discrimination that's associated with substance use disorder in Georgia. This campaign is powered by DBHDD, as well as building off of the pivotal work of Georgia Council for Recovery. So we have three goals and objectives, including increasing knowledge about substance use disorder, and that recovery is not only possible but probable. We seek to improve attitudes towards those living with and or in recovery, and also strengthening the capacity of stakeholders, including organizations and individuals already responding to the crisis. That also reminds me, we have some CIC members in the audience, as well as some of our community partners. Feel free to go ahead and introduce yourselves and get acquainted in the chat. So we have three pillars of work, starting with community connection. We connect with different community organizations across the state in order to expand positive messaging around substance use disorder and recovery. And also our community impact committee, which is our advisory board that guides the direction of the campaign. Story sharing is also really pivotal to the work that we do. We collect stories of recovery and allyship, and these stories are shared across our social media platforms. Last but not least, education. So this campaign is changing attitudes by promoting messaging and speaking to hope and recovery. And then we also host these bi-monthly webinars to shed light on topics related to substance use disorder. So on to our panel introduction. So I do want to take some time to just share that today's webinar is very, very special. This is Georgia Recovers' first CIC, Community Impact Committee led webinar. So our moderators are all CIC members, including Michael Davis, Catherine Tootle, and Shatana Mastroberardino. Super excited to give you all the floor. And with that, I am going to go ahead and pass it on to Shatana.
Hello, everybody. My name is Shatana, and I am going to be introducing Sandy Linden. And excuse me for 1 second, I'm pulling up something here. I have a little blurb to read about her, but I'm gonna add a little tiny personal part in there as well. But Sandy Linden is the founder of Homestead Recovery. And she began her recovery journey in 1989. And with the support of family, friends, and 12-step meetings over the years, she has worked in various recovery roles, including a long-term women's recovery residence in Conyers, Georgia, and later at Advantage Behavioral Health in Athens, Georgia, where she advanced from residential tech to supervisor. After taking a break from the field, Sandy returned to Clarksville, Georgia, where she founded a long-term residential program for women in recovery in 2009. The program, which grew from 8 to 12 beds and earned GAR and Thor certifications, continues to make lasting impact. Retiring in 2020, Sandy remains active in her recovery community, attending local 12-step meetings and supporting new residents. She has built a fulfilling life surrounded by family and friends and continues to focus on her own recovery. Sandy's goals include traveling to Iceland to see the Aurora Borealis and attending 12-step meetings in every state with the Eastern Seaboard and part of the Midwest already checked off her list. And speaking from a personal note, she's a dear friend of mine. I love her very much. She's helped me so much in my life that I've lived here and so far in the last few years that I've known her. And I know the women in the recovery community that she founded, and that it's a wonderful program. And with that, I'm going to give you Sandy Linden. Thank you.
I think I am next to introduce Dustin Enfinger. Dustin Enfinger is a PCCG certified preventionist specializing in suicide prevention. He has a background in gastronomy, creative writing, and graphic arts, but his lived experience around suicide and passion for mental health advocacy brought him into the field of suicide prevention in 2019. Dustin began his work in the community level and helped establish a suicide prevention pilot project in the rural South Georgia. During this time, he started 3 suicide prevention coalitions, conducted 3 community needs assessment, and facilitated multiple suicide prevention initiatives. Dustin is a certified facilitator in Question, Persuade, Refer, or QPR, Connect Postvention, Adult Mental Health First Aid, and a master trainer in counseling on the access of lethal means, or CALM. He joined the Georgia Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities Suicide Prevention Team in June of 2022, and is currently the SPIF Suicide Prevention Coordinator for the state of Georgia. And like Shatana, I've known Dustin, I think he was at a training with me and some of the people that are on this on his like 3rd day of work in 2019 when he joined his team there. So I'm excited to have Dustin join us today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Catherine, and I'm going to introduce Mr. Arturo Ortega. He is a Chicago-born and raised in the Southwest with a diverse background shaped by a wide range of life experiences. A veteran of the United States Marine Corps, Arturo's career has spanned various fields, including serving as a correctional officer with the Federal Bureau of Prisons. After exploring several career paths, he decided to return to his passion for helping others, calling he has felt since his youth. Arturo began his education career at the age of 38 and now has been practicing for over 20 years. Initially, his goal was to work as an addiction counselor or behavioral aide, but as he advanced in his education and gained confidence, he pursued a deeper commitment to the field. Arturo earned his Bachelor of Arts in Social Work from Eastern Nazarene College in Wollaston, Maine, while living in Boston. Later, he relocated to Atlanta, Georgia, where he completed his Master of Social Work at the University of Georgia in Athens. With a strong focus on SUD prevention and intervention throughout his education, Arturo is also a certified alcohol and drug counselor. His dedication to helping individuals overcome challenges and improve their lives continues to define his professional journey.
Okay, perfect. Thank you all for introducing our speakers. Apologies for my cold. Shatana, go ahead and kick off our fireside chat.
Sorry for the delay. Okay, so I'm going to start off with a question, correct? That's okay? All right. Hi, Sandy, and welcome. Okay, so I'm going to start off with a question that I think is on a lot of people's minds. But what advice, Sandy, would you give anyone new in recovery about going into the holiday gatherings where substances may be present? Can you share some tools for preparation, or anything that we should look out for when we're in these situations, especially in being new in recovery?
Thank you, Shatana. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So I've been thinking about this, and being a person in long-term recovery myself, some of the challenges and benefits that I celebrated early on and even today are that being with family of origin can sometimes bring up some nostalgia, and it can sort of weigh on us sometimes. So my suggestion is that if you haven't been in recovery for a long time, and your family of origin wants to know more about what happened in a general way, I would tell them, because people in recovery, people who are using, get isolated from their families. And so when they have the opportunity to come back together, there's some questions that need to be answered. And so I would suggest that they be answered as in such a general way as not to hurt feelings or make more questions difficult. Another thing that was helpful for my family to understand better what I had gone through, because I was the only person in recovery in my family of 6. I suggested some books or some meetings that the family could attend to make them more aware of the disease of addiction. And early on, when I was going into situations where there might be drinking going on, I would always bring a friend. Sometimes a person in recovery, sometimes just a trusted friend that knew my situation and would be there for support. One of the things that I've learned over the years is that I never park when I'm going into a situation where there might be people drinking or using. I never park where I can get blocked in. So that if I need to leave, I say, I do my manners and I get in my car and I go.
Right.
Because I don't care how much time in recovery I have. We live moment to moment. And if I'm caught up in a situation that I feel might be getting dangerous for me, I say my apologies and I leave. And that's what I suggest to all my friends in recovery. And, if I've got that person with me, she's going to understand that now is the time to go. And there's no questions asked. We just go. Sometimes people in early recovery have reunited with their family. And so the holidays can sort of be a lonely time. What I find is the suggestion of going and helping somebody else. There's food banks where people come and get food for their holidays, or soup kitchen where people come to, receive food. There's also lots of places where there's recovery meetings going on day and night. A lot of those places have prepared food. I know that my recovery group early on, we used to do a big Thanksgiving and a big Christmas for those persons who had no family to return to, and just made it a safe place and a joyous place to celebrate the holidays. There's many things that we can do for each other for support. And even at the very least, if I can't get to a meeting, perhaps I'm not driving, I can always take my smartphone, because we all have those, right? And go to an online meeting or listen to a podcast, get some sort of inspiration that will remind me that I am on the right path, that I no longer have to use substances, that I'm building a new life for myself and for those around me, especially if I have a immediate family where I'm trying to reinitiate a relationship with my children. So we can make it a joyous occasion, no matter where we are or where our emotions emotions are. There's lots of things that I can do to not only prepare for the holidays, but have a better experience than I've had in the past with the holidays. I'm going to say this and then I'll be quiet because I don't know how much time I've taken, but I love Santa. And I am not going to miss out on seeing Santa. And I will drag with me anybody that will come along, because I think it just does something to the heart. So I just want to say thank you so much for including me in this beautiful webinar, and that where we can make suggestions and talk with each other about how, how just to live today in a better way. So thank you, Shatana, and thank you, Jayla. I'm going to go mute now.
Excellent. Thank you for that answer, Sandy. We appreciate it. Dustin, as a certified preventionist, thinking about the loved ones of that, maybe having someone that is in recovery or starting the recovery journey, what suggestions can you offer loved ones on how to celebrate the holidays in a way that supports their loved one's recovery journey?
Thank you, Michael. Can you guys hear me well? Okay. So I'm both a person in prevention and a person in recovery. I'm just coming up on 5 years of recovery from alcohol. And so thank you. And I'll speak from both perspectives. When you have family over as a host, there are concessions and considerations we make all the time. Say somebody has a gluten intolerance or is lactose intolerance, or say that they're, maybe a religious food restriction, or we think about these things a lot when we have family over. We make a lot of compromises. We might do a pie with gluten-free crust or something without cheese, or we make these accommodations for people so that everyone comes to the table and feels welcome. And we should do the same thing when it comes to people's recovery journey. When I go to an event and I'm the one person there that isn't drinking alcohol, and I ask, what else is there? And it's tap water or a kid's drink, or Coca-Cola. I'm like, well, I'm still, have health issues. I'm a 44-year-old man. I can't just be slugging Coca-Colas either. That's also not good for me. So, take into consideration some other options. If you have traditions that are surrounded by, sometimes alcohol feels like it's this festive thing. We're doing a glass of champagne. We're doing whatever we're doing. Mix it up. Maybe we're all having hot apple cider. Maybe we're doing a hot cocoa bar with cardamom and chili and some more complex flavors. And we're doing that as a thing that everybody gets to be involved in, so that you're not making the one person who doesn't drink alcohol feel like an outlier in all the traditions. You're creating a tradition for everyone that doesn't involve drinking, and creating a space for belonging for that individual. And then if people want to have drinks, that's fine too. But you've created a space where we're all doing hot chocolate now, or cider, or something else, and you've considered that person. Another thing I'd say is ask them what they would like or what could help. Don't be afraid to ask and just say, what is something I could do that would be helpful? And also, I love that Sandy said she doesn't let herself get blocked in. Support that individual. If people are like, oh, come on, stay, maybe in years prior, you shut it down. You were there, the last person to leave, and you probably shouldn't have. You probably should have taken a cab or an Uber, but you would shut it down. And this time you're going a little early and everyone's saying, come on, what do you mean you're leaving already? Support that individual, have their back, and say, you know what, they had a long drive, or I know they said they had something, whatever it is, just give them that extra support. So if it's their time to go and they need to go for their own recovery journey, they have your support to exit that situation. That's what you can do. You can be their wingman, their sidekick, or whatever. And if they want to talk about their recovery, they can. If they don't have to. That's everybody's choice. Just be supportive in whatever their journey is and whatever they want. And the best way to find out what they want is just to ask them, honestly.
Thank you so much. I have been touched by this already. I don't know about y'all, but I've already got some ideas. So my question is going to be for Arturo, and as a counselor coming from this side of things, how can someone celebrate their recovery during the holidays when they don't really have a strong support system in place, especially being an early recovery?
In early recovery. Hello, everybody. Sorry. First of all, I want to thank you guys for having me. Sandy, you answered a lot of that question yourself, which is awesome. The work you do, congratulations with all the women that you work with. I know they deal with a lot of trauma, a lot of pain, and that's a tough job. Congratulations, and it's an honor to be here with you. Dustin, you as well, sir. Suicide prevention specialist. I'm just very happy and grateful to be here with folks like you and being able to help. Catherine, thank you. I'm warming up my vocal cords. Let's see. I could go into the CBT, acceptance and commitment therapy realm, and really talk about some clinical prevention strategies that we could implement. Mind mapping, knowing where we really come from. Why are we struggling with the things that we struggle with in our lives? I am also in recovery. However, not just recovery from substances, but from trauma, physical, sexual, and emotional. And overcoming the trauma and the addiction and all together is so, it's really mind-blowing what happens to the brain, especially when we add substances to it. Okay. Being able to celebrate what has helped me and was helped many people that I work with is addressing ambivalence, right? We use that little seesaw ambivalence to how strong am I going to be and how am I going to avoid those high risk behaviors? What's going to keep me from taking that drink or from going out, being at the party, and then after you leave the party and saying the heck with it, right? And usually it's when we're alone, right? So how are we going to avoid that? That ambivalence is addressed by really identifying the values. And we could go into those core values, traditional values of responsibility, primarily to ourselves and the honesty that we have, right? Supporting these, not having a good support system is really going to depend on and I'm going to go there, like the 12 steps program is the spirituality of the program. Okay. The spirituality of identifying our values. Okay. Now our higher power is what we're talking about, right? Especially when you're coming from recovery from traumas. So being able to go and celebrate when you don't have a strong support system depends, to be successful really depends a lot on how our own outlook is in our treatment. Have we forgiven ourselves? Have we done that work? Have we made amends? Have we talked to the people that are most important to us? And if there isn't, are we doing the things that we need to do? There's groups like you, Sandy, I have not touched on it yet because you did an awesome job. 24-hour groups. I worked at an agency in Boston. They, it's called Harbor Light Center. And on Christmas, New Year's, all the holidays, we'd go to, they'd have 24-hour parties, I'm telling you. And they would party hardy. Dances, music, it's like, geez, who needs substances? Come on, So there are those groups. I would suggest every person in early recovery to get connected and stay connected. Get a padrino. I'm sorry, padrino is a sponsor. Sorry. Get a sponsor and work with them. I love what you said about a trusted friend. Take a trusted friend with you. Work work with them in conjunction in maintaining. Let them know. And Dustin said, talk to them about it. Let people know what you're doing and what you're at. Don't let them guess about what's going on with us, because usually people are going to guess wrong, right? So being open about this, being open in recovery, it's no longer a stigma. And we need to help eliminate that stigma, because people are suffering, right? And we have to eliminate that stigma. I hope that's helped. I hope that helps someone today. Values clarification, the spirituality of the program. Like Catherine said, that she's touched already. Right now, as I'm speaking, a lot of emotions are coming up because of the experiences that I've had. I've had a lot of experiences. So it's just really great to be here and being among you all and working and talking with you all today on this webinar. Thank you so much. I hope that helps somebody. Thank you.
I think it absolutely did. And Sandy and Arturo, when hearing you speak and Dustin speak, you talked about kind of this emotional time. So what role does grief play in recovery? Because sometimes, Sandy, you talked about some being back with our families, right? And things like that can have grief. So what role does grief play in recovery? And how can loved ones support someone in recovery who may be dealing with that grief during the holiday season?
Hey, can you hear me?
I can.
So
absolutely.
it's been my okay. So it's been my experience, especially after my father passed, having Christmas with our family, with him being gone, was a first-time experience. I was barely 2 years in the recovery process when he passed away. And, what I did was what my sponsor suggested, and that was I went to a lot of meetings and I let people know that I was hurting inside from the passing of my father. My family, who were so accommodating for me, because they were so glad I was back, right? The Sandy that they trusted and loved. We were able to come together and do that process of grieving as a family, because we lived all over different places, which was very helpful. No alcohol was in the house, which was another big plus. And there were times when I excused myself from that celebration of Christmas or Thanksgiving or even the New Year. And I found my 12-step meeting where I could be with my people in recovery, which was so important for me, especially in early recovery. And I do that today also. I want to be there to support those persons who may be at the attending that meeting, who may be in their first few months of recovery and are struggling too. And also to be there with the people who are joyous and happy and free, which the process of recovery brings. So that's me. Thank you.
Thank you. I saw Dustin, you had your hand up too. Do you want to add on?
Yeah. First, I'll preface it by saying that my addiction was really, in a lot of ways, it was born out of grief. I lost my mom to suicide. I actually heard the news while I was out celebrating my 21st birthday when I got the call. And then a year after, my father died in a boating accident. And I was on the boat, and so was a friend, and I was the only survivor. And there was a lot of alcohol involved. So I had these two major tragedies right around the time that I was able to legally drink. I was a chef at the time, had a place that served alcohol, that had a full bar, and drinking was a big part of how you just wound down from a really long night in the kitchen anyway. So it was almost this perfect storm for me to start abusing drugs and alcohol. And I used that as I mean, it was obviously a negative coping skill, but I didn't actually properly grieve those losses until I started my sobriety journey. So although we think, yes, we're dealing with it, and this is how we're dealing with it, we're not. You're sort of tamping down the grief. You're watering it down. But you're really just delaying the inevitable. It's still going to manifest, and you're still going to have to process it in a real healthy way eventually, or it's going to continue to sort of eat away at you. So if I could encourage somebody going through grief and early recovery, is that you're really dealing with that grief now. If you can stay sober through it, if you can stay strong through it, if you can work through that grief without going to those substances, you will really truly be doing the work of grief and healing, and you'll be closer to coming out on the other end of that and understanding what your new normal is and being able to adapt and find new loves and new joys and new traditions that will fill you up and make you feel whole. But if you try to deal with it with drinking, it's still coming. It's just farther down the road. So face it head on, and whatever that looks like for you, just do your best and have the right people around you and the right support, and really try to just learn those healthier coping skills.
I'd like to add something. I really love what you said, Dustin. Growing that new norm of being, that new norm of us, not using those unhealthy coping skills and depending on them. Grief, the role it plays in recovery, oh my word, it's just like, it's like a danger zone for many people. And if they don't deal with it and they're in early recovery, they have to start going through that process. They have to start going through those stages. They have to really start and just letting it manifest in a healthy way. Drinking, drugs, we all know it's still gonna come, like Dustin said. And yeah, grief plays a role in it, and we really have to be ready for it. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Arturo. Can I say something? My name is Shatana, and I'm also a person in long-term recovery. You guys, thank you so much, because I'm dealing with some of the grief now because I lost my husband last year in February. So, but I have a question that this is something that just came up for me when I just got back from Virginia, and I was around my family, and they're not alcoholics, and they drink and stuff. So anyway, how can someone in recovery set healthy boundaries with friends or family members who may not fully understand the importance of maintaining recovery? Because I've gotten drilled before with questions, and how come aren't you happy? If you're happy, you won't have a problem, and all kinds of conversations that we had. And sometimes I felt like I wish I could call my sponsor and ask her. I don't know what to say sometimes with these questions, So anyway, how do you guys do that? What are some suggestions, Sandy, Dustin, or Arturo, and that you would suggest? Thank you.
I can start. You can't change somebody's behavior. You can only change how you react to it. And if you don't pick your family. And I'm not saying that you need to isolate from your family, but you can make a choice. You don't have to spend time with people that are bad for your recovery. And sometimes it's okay to put a little distance between you and somebody who is bad for your recovery. I had to do that. I had to make some hard choices. There were some people that I just couldn't spend time with because they were bad for my recovery. And in a lot of ways, they were probably just bad for my soul. But different relationships have their season. There are people that I've fallen out with because of my own addiction, where they couldn't be around me because of my addiction. And in my sobriety, we've come back together. We've healed our friendship, and I've rediscovered old friends that I'd lost because they couldn't recognize me anymore when I was in my addiction, and they had to grieve the loss of the friend they knew. And then it was like they got me back once I became sober. So it's okay for your relationships to shift a little bit when you're in recovery. I think having grace with yourself and realizing that you do have a choice and that you can choose who you put yourself around and that that's okay and that they don't have to understand is also a strength. Yeah.
Thank you, Dustin. Anybody else want to chime in on this? Sandy?
I'll say a little something, and that is, I'll give you a perfect example of some of the women that I sponsor. I can make some suggestions and share my experience, strength, and hope with the situation they may be going through. Excuse me. Sometimes they can hear it from me, but sometimes they can't. And for those people, I'll send them to somebody else, a woman that maybe they can hear that message from. That happens in families also. And so my suggestion is let them do their research, to suggest readings that they can go to, or perhaps a meeting where family members and friends of the person in recovery can go to learn more about the entire aspect of the recovery process, because it's not just about me. It's about the whole dynamic of the family and where they fit into that. Because for me, it's best when everybody makes an effort. If I had terminal cancer, everybody would be around and they would want to know every day what the new doctor report is. So in order for them to know more about the recovery process and the incurable fatal illness that I have, right? I'm going to give them some books. I'm going to let them hear it from somebody else, perhaps in a meeting, that may make a better point than I can, because they've seen me at my worst. Maybe they don't trust me yet. And maybe I don't get along that well with them yet. And so I say, here, read this. Thank you.
I'd like to
Yes, Arturo.
add something.
Thank you.
I want to jump up just real quickly to the grief. One thing I learned in early recovery was we grieve the loss of the substance that we are controlled by. We grieve that. That's one thing that we didn't really, that I wanted to say, but didn't have a chance to say. So it is a huge part of our whole recovery process, because we grieve that. We ask ourselves throughout the tenure, why me? Why do I have to go through this? Why do I have to stop? Right? Then we look at all the mess we left behind, right? And that's, a lot of people remember the good stuff. But for people who are adamant, we look at all the mess and we learn to hate it. That's how grief, that's another part of grief and how it impacts us. Boundaries are huge. I like to always add the emotional boundary part. Those emotional boundaries, we could do physical boundaries. Believe me, I'm 3,000 miles away from home. Okay, and that's kind of like how it ended up. A person told me that a long time ago, also in early recovery. Sometimes you might have to change your zip code. Okay, and these are family members that I love. These are people that I grew up with. But the New Mexico desert place where it's just so many wonderful memories, and I can't be there all the time, right? So it's difficult, and it all goes all together in this process. So boundaries are very important, and like I said, they could be here in the moment, letting people know, educating them, and let them, if they choose to be away from us, they don't drink no more. We're going to lose a lot of friends. Okay. So just get ready for that. Thank you. Was that Chitana? Thank you, Chitana.
Yes, thank you all very much. So I'm going to pass now.
Yeah, real quick, Chitana, I just want to say it was such a great question. I wanted to say Brene Brown, whom I love, one of my sheroes, always said when it comes to boundaries, clear is kind, unclear is unkind. So know what your boundary is and be clear about that. So if people know this is my limit and this is what I'm not going to take, instead of being mad later, and it was unkind of you for not saying these are my boundaries. This is not what I'm going to allow to happen around me. So I think just adding in, I do a lot of work with youth. We're going to talk about boundaries as to youth, right? And just try to remind them of it's okay to set your boundary. And then if someone violates that, it's okay for you to take your space, right? On that, or say, I was very clear about this. I'm leaving now because I was very clear that this was not what I'm comfortable with. And that's the kindest thing we can do, I think, as humans, is to be clear on when this happens, this is going to be my response and I'm leaving, right, on that, because I can't be around this to protect my own self. And it's the unclear part that I think Sandy and Dustin and Arturo all talked about of like, I don't know what the boundaries is because I didn't talk to you about how do I help you be sober in this space. And then you're mad at me when I do something that was not clear. So I think that's such a great question to Tana to ask.
So I have a question also. Thank you all for everything you shared. It's meant a lot to me with y'all's level of transparency. It has slowed me down today to really be grateful for these moments that we have. So can any of y'all share any kind of success stories or examples of people who have navigated recovery in challenging environments and what strategies they might have used to inspire other people who are listening today?
What a question, Catherine. That is one beautiful question. That's probably going to take us all to our thought process and memory banks. I'm going to try and start off with that. Success stories. I'm going to use myself. I mentioned a little bit about boundaries and being away from family. Yet we have a great relationship still over the phone and video. But I would say that being able to get to navigate the holidays, to navigate recovery and these challenging environments. We're not just talking about Christmas. We're talking about there's many holidays we have throughout the year. Somebody mentioned today, 4th of July, that's a big one for us. I think the way to inspire somebody to a strategy to help them would be to be clear, set the boundaries, and communicate what you need at that moment. And don't ever put yourself in a driveway that's going to be blocked in, like Sandy said. And those are easy ones. But I think those have been helpful for me. Escape routes, right? Being able to communicate, being able to try to educate some people. Some of them don't want to hear it, but we have to continue on in our process. Thank you.
I'll say I quit drinking during COVID, right at the height of it. So that was probably a tricky time when the world was increasing their alcohol purchases tenfold. I decided to quit, but sometimes it's all about our perspective. It seemed like a great reason to drink more, but it also seemed like a time when everything was already shifting and out of the ordinary. And actually, I looked at it a little different. I thought, you know what, if I quit now, I'm not going out anyway. I'm not around anyone anyway. A lot of those triggers that I normally have are actually not here right now. Maybe now is the time for me to really do this, and maybe I'll be successful. So since everything else was already upside down, I decided to be sober, to really try full sobriety and commit to it as a life decision, because I had a lot of false starts before. And it's the one that stuck. And I think the reason it stuck was just that, because so many normals were being redefined and so many things were shifting. Adding one more major change was just sort of par for the course. And as the world slowly started to come back to its new normal, I was slowly coming back to my new normal with the world as well. And I emerged from that as a sober person. And that was a matter of changing my lens and looking at it differently. So I think if you can see the opportunities and if you change your perception to look for those opportunities, that you can do that sometimes. You can make a challenging circumstance a strength or a benefit.
Okay, I'll briefly throw in my 2 cents about this. And it's my own experience. Early in recovery, but even sometimes since then, I've been invited to parties that I knew that there would be drinking going on. The host or hostess who I would know well, if I felt unsafe there, I would call and make my apologies and just tell them, I am not in a balanced place with my recovery right now, and so I'm going to decline. And also, I've called them where I will attend to let them know ahead of time. If I get uncomfortable, I may leave, and if I can't find you right away, I may not say goodbye. But just know that that's what I'm doing in order to protect this beautiful recovery, this gift of recovery that I've been given. And I have never once had that go bad. Everybody that I've ever let them know that might be a possibility of me leaving quickly, they're always on board with that. And I'm grateful.
Beautiful. Thank y'all all. Dustin, I and my husband, we chose the pandemic to let go of smoking cigarettes. And it was crazy now that I think about it. But it was. It's what we did with it. Thank y'all all.
Thank you for sharing that. Absolutely. Yeah. I didn't think I was the only one that used that as an opportunity to make some changes. I have a friend he's a Anglican priest, and I didn't really know him well before the pandemic, but we started to jog together. Our wives told us that we needed to get out and do something. So we did this social distance run. It was me, him, and another guy that lived in our neighborhood that was a public defender. So it was good. I could get legal and spiritual advice at the same time as my exercise. And we'd also run and get a coffee. There was a coffee shop that did an outside socially distanced cafe where you could get your coffee outside. It was great. But he said something where he used this analogy about his kid having this like bucket of toys and how he like dumped it all out and he got to decide what he put back in it. I'm paraphrasing and it's terrible, but there was something in him saying that our lives are dumped out right now. They're all on the table. We get to decide as life comes back together what we keep and what we put back in there. Maybe there's some bad routines we don't put back in there. Maybe there's some things we just leave out. We've been doing them so regularly now that they're routine, they're habits, but maybe we don't put some of those bad habits back in the bucket. And that makes me think about that. That was part of my inspiration for quitting. That little word, he was just workshopping a sermon and it spoke to me, and I used some of that in my recovery. So very cool.
I am going to hop back in. Thank you all so much for your time. I've learned so much. I have like 3 takeaways here, including remembering that like we're not alone. We're able to find groups of support that we need, and also bringing your loved ones along for the ride, including being transparent about your experiences and why recovery is important to you. And so I wanted to open up the floor because I think what's so special about this group is that there is professional expertise, but also lived experience here. And so I want to pose the question to the entire group if you're interested in responding, but thinking about our conversation around grief and navigating early recovery during the holidays. I want to switch gears and talk a little bit about gratitude. We know that the holiday season can bring about this idea of gratitude. And so can you all provide some insight in how people can intentionally practice gratitude in their recovery during this holiday season, or even sharing with us how you all plan to celebrate recovery and also just your gratitude with your loved ones in this season?
I will start us off because gratitude is my favorite. It is my favorite. That is literally, as a person in long-term recovery, that is what got me through like the first few years of my recovery. And I started it off really simple with like a gratitude list being told by my sponsor. And it went from like 3 little bullet points to just pages and pages. And it's something that when we practice to find gratitude in the small details, more becomes available. We start seeing more, and that's what was happening to me. And in these holidays, as a woman who went through a DFACS case to get my daughter back, I celebrate all the small, tiny moments with my family. I do not let them pass by. I'm real intentional about slowing down and being present with them in the moment because they go by so fast. And so I try to hang on to them as much as I can.
I think that's such a good question and a really good transition. Every single thing we tell ourselves when we're in early recovery, there are so many. It's so easy to say, "Oh, I'm not allowed. I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore." There are even more things when you really look at it to be grateful for that you can do again. And the holidays is a great time to do that because our addiction, it has so much control over our choices. It makes half of our choices, maybe more than half of our choices for us. You get back so much autonomy and freedom when you are in recovery. You get to choose. Even taking cigarettes as an example, like, I used to smoke and I'd have to leave a movie to go smoke a cigarette during a movie. Couldn't get through a whole movie without smoking a cigarette. And I'd always miss 5 minutes of a movie because I have to go smoke a cigarette. So I didn't have to do that anymore. And if you're a regular drinker, you probably had to go pee 3 times during that movie too. So when you look at everything to be grateful for that you've gained, there's a lot that you take back. And the holidays and being fully present and being in the moment and not being half 1 foot, in the moment, 1 foot in your addiction is really great. You get to really show up for things. And there's just so much to be grateful for. Again, if we just look at it a little different and we see all the things we gain in our recovery instead of the handful of things that we lose.
I'd like to add something. I think gracious people, people that have a lot of gratitude, are happy people, mourning people. And it's always in my household, and I'm the only mourning person in the household. So they kind of, throwing stuff at me and stuff. But if a lot of them, I've talked a lot about my recovery with my family, and if they don't truly understand, and I think they get it little by little, but they see their dad every day who gets up with this attitude, right, of just happiness, music, joy, and just being gracious. A lot of that started through humility, through my higher power and understanding that. And when you've put yourself and gone to that rock bottom places and that humility has kicked in, there's so much, like Dustin said, to be grateful for. Thank you.
I'm going to pop in for just a minute too. I just want to say thank you to everybody because this has been a true joy and pleasure. For me, when I get up in the morning, I have a choice. When I wake up, I have a choice now. Before I didn't really have a choice. I knew exactly what I was going to do because I had to. But now I get a choice. So in order for my mind to go off on the path that is more desirable for me, I will start making that gratitude list right away. Least I don't, then the buzzards start flying around, to sort of pick at my brain. And I have a friend of mine that really helped me, just a simple word that really helped me in the morning. And that is, I changed my have to I get to. I get to have that free choice today. I get to wake up and choose gratitude and choose happiness. And through that mental gratitude list that I do, I get to see how beautiful my life is. I can remember early on telling my then sponsor, gosh, this is really hard. And she said, compared to what? Passing out school? That was hard. This is not hard. This work that you're doing now is going to open up so many beautiful doors for you. You have no idea right now what your life could be like. And so that's the message I want to give. Just stick with it and do it one moment at a time. And great things will come to pass for you and countless others. Merry Christmas.
Thank you all so much. I know we only have a few more moments left, but as we conclude the webinar, I want to give the entire group a huge shout out, first with our CIC members, Michael Davis, Catherine Tootle, and Shatana. You all did an awesome job bringing this webinar to life. And I know that our audience is going to take a lot away from this. Same thing with our speakers, Sandy, Arturo, and Dustin. Thank you all so much for joining us. You all have been so insightful. And thank you for not only sharing your expertise, but also your lived experience as well. All of this, right, is insurmountable. So super excited. Yeah, again, thank you all so much for your time. And so we have a second or so. So if anyone wants to share anything, shout out your organizations, plug any resources, feel free to do so. Oh, and also complete the forms that Jody is dropping in the chat as well.
I want to say that it's been a pleasure meeting you all. It seems like if we could be in the same agency or something, it'll be a team worth being a part of. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much.
If you guys are ever in Statesboro, Georgia, you need to come by our RCO called Freedom Through Recovery. Let us give you a tour, make you a cup of coffee, and do some peer support.
Yeah, and I'm with the 988 number, which is the suicide hotline, mental health hotline. So let's remember to tell our people, the clients, whatever, that does exist. Is 24/7 here in Georgia. And we do, I go out, we're mobile crisis, so people will come to the home. So, and then the counselors will do assessments. So that are valid. So anyway, that's what I'm going to say. Plus, the other thing I want to say is what a great group of people. I've just really enjoyed this so much. And I touched on a lot of things I needed to hear today. So thank you all very much.
I want to close too in saying that addiction is a lonely place. It's very lonely. You keep a lot of secrets. You are very isolated. Recovery is like opening up your arms and your heart to other people, and you get to have these feelings of connectedness and these great feelings that come with being your whole self and people seeing your whole self and really connecting with other beautiful people in that recovery journey. So, if you are in that lonely place, recovery can really open that up and relieve a lot of that. So your recovery community is your best friend.
Well, thank you all so much for your time. It is 2 p.m., so we don't want to leave anyone stuck in here with us, for lack of better words. But thank you all so much for your time, and be expecting the recording pretty soon. Bye.